Right now, as you are reading these words, you are doing something most people think is impossible. You are practicing the core tenets of Buddhism without even knowing it. Welcome to Moonmind Temple, where tonight you will discover that the peace you have been searching for has been hiding in the most ordinary moments of your life. Whether you're lying awake in bed unable to sleep, walking through your neighborhood, or sitting in your car before going into work, you have stumbled upon something that could change everything. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to become a different person or learn complicated techniques. You just need to see what is already here. If this feels right to you, I would love to know where in the world you're joining us from tonight. Drop a comment with your city or just the time where you are. There's something magical about knowing we are connected across time zones, all discovering the same ancient wisdom together. Perhaps you can adjust your pillow, take a deep breath, or simply let your shoulders drop, because what I am about to share will surprise you. Dizzy where peace begins. In a quiet monastery in France, families from all over the world gather every summer to learn something revolutionary about daily life. Parents arrive thinking they need to choose between taking care of their children and finding inner peace. They expect meditation to happen in silence, away from crying babies and busy schedules. But the wise teachers there know a secret that changes everything. Your family time is your practice time. Washing dishes is meditation. Being patient with a cranky child is spiritual training. Sitting in traffic is an opportunity for peace. Everything you think is getting in the way of your spiritual life, in fact, is your spiritual life. Take a moment to think about your morning routine. You probably rush through washing your breakfast dishes so you can get to more important things. But what if I told you that those few minutes at the sink could become the most peaceful part of your day? What if washing your coffee cup could teach you more about happiness than 100 self-help books? In Zen Buddhism, there's a teaching that when you wash dishes, you wash them completely, not thinking about your to-do list, not planning your next conversation, not solving tomorrow's problems, just feeling the warm water on your hands, watching soap bubbles form and disappear, and being fully present with this simple task. This isn't just about being mindful. It's about discovering that peace doesn't require perfect conditions. Here is what most people don't understand about Buddhist practice. They think it happens for 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes at night during formal meditation. But that leaves 23 hours of your day untouched by peace. The real question isn't whether you can find calm in a quiet room, but whether you can find calm while your kids are arguing, your boss is demanding, and your phone won't stop buzzing. Glowing star, the power of letting go. Tonight, you're going to learn something that sounds impossible but is absolutely true. The very things you think are preventing you from finding peace, your busy schedule, your family responsibilities, your ordinary daily tasks, are actually perfect opportunities to discover the freedom you've been seeking. This isn't about adding more to your already full life. It's about seeing your life with completely new eyes. It is why Buddhist masters say that washing one bowl mindfully can bring more joy than achieving everything on your bucket list while distracted. The families at that French monastery discovered something that will transform how you see everything. The practice isn't separate from real life. The practice is real life, approached with awareness, kindness, and the radical understanding that this moment, exactly as it is, contains everything you need. By the time we finish our journey tonight, you will understand why a simple monastery teaches that the path to extraordinary peace runs directly through the most ordinary activities. You will know why washing dishes can be a doorway to freedom and why the ancient art of letting go might be the exact thing that finally lets you have everything you have ever truly wanted. Balance scale, the three spiritual powers. There's something happening in our world right now that would have fascinated ancient Buddhist masters. We have more ways than ever before to measure power: social media followers, bank account balances, titles on business cards, and the square footage of our homes. But if you look closely at the people who seem to have all this power, you'll notice something strange. Many of them seem anything but peaceful. This isn't a criticism, it's an observation that points to something profound about the nature of true power. Buddhist wisdom, developed over thousands of years, recognizes three completely different kinds of power that most of our world has forgotten about. These aren't powers that control others or accumulate wealth. They are powers that free you from the exhausting cycle of always needing more. When Buddhist teachers evaluate someone's spiritual development, they don't ask how much that person has accumulated. They don't count meditation hours or years of practice. Instead, they look for 3 specific qualities that reveal genuine spiritual maturity. These 3 qualities are so different from what our culture celebrates that recognizing them can completely shift how you see success, strength, and what it means to live well. 1. The power of compassion. Real compassion is not the weak, passive version some people imagine. True compassion is like being a steady lighthouse in someone's storm. You don't try to change their weather, but your presence helps them navigate through it safely. Think about the person in your life who makes you feel most understood. They probably don't give you advice all the time or try to fix your problems. They just have this quality of being completely present with whatever you're experiencing. That's compassion as a spiritual power. It grows stronger when you use it and it never runs out. True compassion also means being kind to yourself, especially when you're struggling. Most of us have learned to be our own harshest critics, thinking that constant self-judgment will somehow motivate us to be better. But compassion recognizes that beating yourself up actually makes change harder, not easier. When you practice genuine self-compassion, you create a safe internal environment where natural growth happens. 2. The power of wisdom. Wisdom isn't about collecting more information or having opinions about everything. It's about seeing clearly through the fog of confusion that clouds most of our daily decisions. You know those moments when you're really upset about something, and then a week later you realize it wasn't nearly as important as you thought? Wisdom is having that perspective available right when you need it, not just in hindsight. Wisdom also means recognizing the difference between what's actually happening and the stories your mind tells you about what's happening. Your boss sends you a short email, and your mind creates an entire narrative about how they're probably unhappy with your work. Your friend doesn't respond to your text immediately, and suddenly you're convinced they're angry at you. Wisdom sees these mental stories for what they are, just thoughts, not facts. 3. The power of cutting off and letting go. But this third spiritual power is the one that will change everything for you tonight. Buddhist masters call it the power of cutting off and letting go. And it's the secret to a kind of freedom that most people never discover. This power works in exactly the opposite way that our culture teaches us power should work. Instead of gaining strength by accumulating more, this power grows by releasing what you don't actually need. Here's what's revolutionary about this understanding. In almost every area of life, we are taught that more equals better. More education makes you smarter. More money makes you secure. More achievements make you successful. More possessions make you comfortable. The assumption is always that the solution to any problem is to add something to your life. Feeling insecure? Get more money. Feeling lonely? Get more friends. Feeling unsuccessful? Get more achievements. Buddhist wisdom suggests something that might sound crazy at first, that this endless accumulation often creates the very problems it's supposed to solve. The more you have, the more you have to protect. The more you achieve, the more pressure you feel to maintain your achievements. The more you own, the more you worry about losing what you own. What looks like security from the outside often feels like a beautiful prison from the inside. This is where the 3 spiritual powers become practical tools for living. When you develop true compassion, you stop needing other people to be different for you to be okay. When you cultivate genuine wisdom, you stop being fooled by the stories your anxious mind tells you about what you need to be happy. And when you practice the power of letting go, you discover that the things you thought you needed for security were often the very things preventing you from feeling truly secure. Spiritual power grows when you share it. The more compassionate you become, the more compassion you have available. The wiser you grow, the more clearly you see. The more you practice letting go, the more spacious and free you feel. Waive the source of suffering. Now, we come to the heart of what Buddhist wisdom has been teaching for over 2,000 years. And it's something that will probably challenge everything you've been told about how to live a good life. Most spiritual traditions, most self-help approaches, and most therapeutic methods focus on adding something to your experience. Add more gratitude, add more positive thinking, add more meditation, add more mindfulness to your day. But Buddhist practice works in exactly the opposite direction. The path to freedom isn't about accumulating more spiritual experiences or collecting more wisdom. It's about recognizing what you are already carrying that you don't actually need, and gently setting it down. Think about it this way. If your house is cluttered, you don't solve the problem by buying more organizing systems. You solve it by removing what doesn't belong there. Your mind works the same way. Buddhist teachers identified 3 specific mental patterns that create most of our unnecessary suffering. They call these the 3 afflictions. And once you learn to recognize them, you'll start seeing them everywhere, not just in dramatic situations, but in the tiny moments that make up most of your daily experience. The beautiful thing is that you don't have to fight these patterns or eliminate them completely. You just need to see them clearly enough that they lose their power to control your reactions. 1. The affliction of craving. The first affliction is what Buddhist teaching calls craving. But that word might mislead you into thinking this is only about dramatic addictions or obvious desires. Craving shows up much more subtly than that. It's anytime your mind reaches for something different than what is actually here right now. It could be reaching for a different mood, a different response from someone, a different outcome to a situation, or even a different version of yourself. Craving also includes what Buddhist psychology calls subtle greed. The barely noticeable preferences that seem innocent but gradually accumulate into a heavy burden of always wanting things to be slightly different. You prefer your coffee at a certain temperature, your commute to take exactly the right amount of time, your coworkers to be in good moods, and the weather to match your plans. There's nothing wrong with these preferences, but notice how much mental energy goes into managing them. A story from the French monastery perfectly illustrates how subtle craving can be. One summer, the community received a donation of beautiful new yellow chairs for their dining area. These chairs were clearly higher quality than the old ones. Now, remember, this is a monastery where people come to practice letting go of material attachments. But what happened when those yellow chairs appeared? Suddenly, during mealtimes, people would arrive a few minutes early to secure them. Families would gather all the yellow chairs for their group. No one was being greedy in a dramatic way. No one was fighting over chairs. But there was this subtle reaching, this gentle preference for the newer, more comfortable option. The chair hadn't changed. Its usefulness hadn't changed. The tea tasted exactly the same. But the mind's relationship to the chair had transformed from freedom to attachment. The suffering was not caused by the chair itself, but by the mental concept of ownership that the mind created. The exhausting thing about craving is that it never stops. But here's what's beautiful about the Buddhist understanding of craving. You don't have to fight it or feel guilty about it. You just have to see it clearly. When you notice your mind reaching for the yellow chair, you can smile and think, "Oh, there's that reaching again." The moment you see craving clearly, it loses its grip on you. 2. The affliction of anger. The second affliction is anger. But again, this isn't just about dramatic rage. Anger in Buddhist understanding is any pushing away energy in your mind. It's resistance to what's actually happening. It shows up as irritation when someone drives too slowly in front of you, annoyance when your technology doesn't work as you expect, or frustration when your carefully made plans get disrupted. Anger is often the flip side of craving. When you can't have what you want, the mind switches to pushing away what you don't want. The problem with anger is not that it harms others, though it sometimes does. The problem is that it's like holding a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. You're the one who gets burned first. Every moment you spend mentally arguing with what has already happened is a moment you're not available for responding wisely to what's actually here. 3. The affliction of ignorance. The third affliction is ignorance. And this one might surprise you. Buddhist ignorance isn't about not knowing enough facts or being uneducated. It's about not seeing clearly how your own mind works. It's the confusion that makes you think your thoughts are facts, your emotions are emergencies, and your opinions are absolute truths. Perhaps the most common form of ignorance is not recognizing the difference between your direct experience and your interpretation of that experience. Someone doesn't respond to your text immediately, and you create an entire story about what that means. You feel tired in the afternoon, and you decide this says something definitive about your health. The gap between what actually happens and what your mind makes it mean is where most unnecessary suffering lies. The 3 afflictions, craving, anger, and ignorance, work together to create most of the unnecessary drama in your daily life. The beautiful thing is that just recognizing these patterns is the beginning of freedom from them. Shedding tree be and flourish. There's a way of understanding yourself that will completely change how you navigate daily life. And it begins with imagining that you are like a tree. Every tree is shaped by 2 fundamental forces: what it inherited from its seed and what it encounters in its environment. You are exactly the same. Right now, you are carrying forward the gifts and challenges that came through your family line. At the same time, you are being shaped by your current environment, the people you interact with, the information you consume, and the places you spend time. Buddhist wisdom recognizes that understanding this interplay between your inherited nature and your current environment is essential for finding peace and making wise choices. When you see clearly how you're being influenced and how you're influencing others, you can start making conscious choices about the kind of person you want to become. You can live your life like a tree. You can sink your roots deep into practices that nourish your soul, such as meditation, time in nature, and genuine connection with others. You can reach toward whatever brings light to your life, beauty, learning, service, and creativity. You don't need to save the world, achieve enlightenment, or become perfect to live a meaningful life. A tree simply grows at its own pace in its own way, contributing what it can at each stage of its development. It doesn't need to prove its worth through impressive achievements. It simply needs to be a tree, to sink its roots deep, to reach toward the light, and to provide shelter for birds and shade for other creatures. By doing these simple, natural things, it fulfills its purpose and contributes to the well-being of the entire ecosystem. You can live in the same way. The permission to simply be does not mean abandoning all goals or becoming passive about your life. It means recognizing that your goals and activities arise from and return to a deeper foundation, your basic capacity to be present, aware, and responsive to life as it unfolds. You are enough as you are. Right now, you are enough to live with dignity, to love and be loved, and to make a positive difference in the lives of others. This discovery doesn't come all at once, and it's often challenged by old habits of self-criticism and improvement obsession. But each time you choose presence over productivity, acceptance over improvement, you strengthen your capacity to live from this deeper foundation. You will gradually learn to trust that you don't need to earn your worth through achievement or justify your existence through constant growth. You can simply be, and that is enough. Gift of blessing for your journey. As we come to the end of our journey tonight, I want you to understand something essential about the path of letting go and finding peace. This isn't a path of harsh discipline or relentless self-improvement. It's a path of extraordinary gentleness toward yourself, combined with the radical practice of finding joy in the simplest aspects of being alive. Most people who begin exploring Buddhist wisdom make a crucial mistake. They approach it like another self-improvement project, bringing the same harsh, demanding energy they use to solve every other problem in their lives. But this approach misses the very heart of what Buddhist practice is about. The practice is not about eliminating your human imperfections, but about developing a completely different relationship with them. A relationship based on understanding, acceptance, and gentle guidance rather than criticism, resistance, and force. You learn to treat yourself the way a loving grandmother treats a small child who is learning to walk, with infinite patience, constant encouragement, and the deep knowing that falling down is part of the process, not a sign of failure. This gentleness toward yourself is not weakness. It is actually the foundation of genuine transformation. When you are constantly fighting with yourself, most of your energy goes into the internal struggle rather than into actually growing and changing. When you approach your patterns and difficulties with curiosity and compassion instead of judgment and force, you create the safe internal environment where real healing can happen. This gentle approach is only half of what makes the spiritual path sustainable and joyful. The other half is what Buddhist teaching calls nourishing yourself with simple joys. This is the practice of deliberately noticing and appreciating the countless ordinary miracles that surround you every day. Most people wait for big, special experiences to feel genuinely happy. They think joy comes from achieving major goals or acquiring significant possessions. But Buddhist wisdom reveals that this approach to happiness is like trying to quench your thirst by waiting for rainstorms while ignoring the fresh water that's available in your kitchen sink every day. The most reliable sources of contentment and joy are the simple experiences that are constantly available, but that we've trained ourselves not to notice. This practice can transform your entire experience of daily life. Instead of rushing through routine activities to get to more exciting things, you begin to discover interest and even delight in ordinary moments. The taste of your morning coffee becomes a small celebration. The sight of sunlight streaming through your window becomes a daily gift of beauty. As we come to the end of our time together, I want you to know that this path of gentle self-compassion and simple joys is not a luxury. It's essential medicine for anyone who wants to live with wisdom and contribute positively to the world. So, be patient with yourself on this journey. Trust that you don't need to perfect anything to be worthy of love and respect. Take time to nourish yourself with whatever simple pleasures are available to you. As you go about your day, carry with you the understanding that everything you need for peace and happiness is already within you. Not as a potential that needs to be developed, but as a reality that simply needs to be recognized and allowed to express itself. May you find moments of genuine peace in your ordinary days. May you discover joy in simple pleasures. May you treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer to a dear friend who is learning and growing. And finally, may you trust that this moment, right now, exactly as it is, contains everything you need to take the next step on your journey with confidence and peace. The path continues tomorrow, but for now, rest in the knowing that you are exactly where you need to be. Learning what you need to learn. Becoming who you are meant to become. From Moon Mind Temple, with deep gratitude for your presence and your commitment to wisdom and compassion, I offer you this blessing for the journey ahead. May you walk in peace,